there's a moment when these young boys, they wake up in the morning, they have a letter or a video from their father that says, "Hey, I'm calling you up and out. You have a choice. You can go back to bed and you could spend the day at home doing what you usually do, or you could come and follow me into manhood."
Wow.
And so, you know, I mean, most of the boys that have ever had that challenge have said, "Yeah, I'm going."
What's the age range of your kids and how many kiddos?
We have four kids. Our oldest is 18, and then coming down from there, 18, 15, 13, and 11, boy, boy, girl, boy. So three boys, one girl, and she reminds us daily that she's the only one. So
Yes.
surrounded by boys.
Yes,
Yeah.
amazing. And let's go with your daughter's perspective. What would she say about dad? If I was like, hey, tell me a little bit about your dad. What's he like? What would she say?
I think she would say that, well, I think she sees the intentional side of things.
Mm.
So we go on dates often. We're
Yes.
actually getting ready right now for a daddy-daughter kind of dance prom kind of style experience coming up, and it's what we talk about daily. And so my impression is that when she thinks of me, uh, she thinks of probably how I bring a little bit of toughness on her school and the things that she knows she's working on and I'm working on her with, but also probably a pretty long list of special memories. In her room,
Mm.
she has a bookcase, and uh, a lot of the pictures on there are of me and her at these milestone moments. And I like that because I think that's going to set her up down the road
Mm.
as she looks out to the landscape of guys out there and has to make some choices. So anyway, a lot in that as
Yeah.
well. So
Well, I want to come
yeah.
back to milestone moments and just how we can actually craft and create moments that are significant and memorable and they anchor our kids back. But let's go with quickly your boys though. What would they add to your daughter's perspective of you? Would they add anything or throw anything a little different in when they describe dad?
I don't know. This is a tricky question. I haven't thought too much about like what do they think of when they think of me.
Mm.
I think I'm pretty present and around.
Mhm.
I think when they think of me, I think they would probably think of me sitting on the end of their bed, uh, me at the dining room table, kind of me present in the stands. And so I think that they would probably say present. So
Yeah.
I
Now
don't
we
know.
were that's helpful. It's just kind of colors the conversation a little bit. We were introduced by our mutual friend Justin, who said, "Man, you have to talk to Michael. There is something really special going on in Alaska
Oh,
that he's a part of the leadership for. That's been going on for I think close to 3 decades. These adventure moments, raising, discipling dads, sons, and so we're going to go into that in a little bit here. But when it comes to your desire as a dad to not only care for your own kids, but just go beyond and be a part of something bigger than your own family when it comes to discipleship and men. Is this something you observed from mentor or like did you not have it? So that's why you're like you swung the pendulum or where did that does that like deeper desire to be an intentional dad? Where does it come from?
I think it comes from a couple of places. My dad and I are the closest of friends, and I love him, and I love that I can say that because we have a story, my dad and I, of some things that we've kind of been through and landing in this green pasture that wasn't always the green pasture.
Mhm.
And but I think he was a dad who worked very, very hard and provided so many things for us as a family that made a lot of memories for us. But because he was working so hard on those things and setting up kind of a situation where we were provided for, he wasn't around much. And so when I think of the deep conversations that I had or the moments of crisis where I really needed some coaching and some help, he's not the guy that comes to mind.
Yeah.
It's my mom. And my mom was a great help to me. But it left some questions around some important concepts around kind of growing in faith and interacting with women and there were some trouble spots. So
Mm.
I would say when I think of my relationship with my dad, he didn't know a lot of what was going on. And he was busy working on, I think, from his perspective, what it meant to be a man.
Sure.
From maybe it's a generational perspective or whatever it is. And so the first time that I experienced kind of coaching, discipleship, kind of older godly person reaching down and helping me was when I came to Christ. And that experience of being coached and guided and helped was so amazing that when I started having kids, I started asking the question, what does it mean to be a dad? What does it mean? Like, what's my responsibility as a dad to coach and to help my kids with their faith? Because we go to church for an hour a week, hour and a half. I drop them off at this program. They have a lot of fun. They're learning a little bit of Bible. But is that it? Is that enough to get them to where they need to be to engage as preteens, as teenagers, and the culture that they're in? So, yeah, I'd say I had a dad who was loving, maybe not a disciple maker, maybe not as intentional as he could have been, or whatever. And
Mhm.
again, I bless my dad. He's a great friend. Um, and then having kids and just having question marks about everything. Like, what does this look like? So,
So if I come to you with some of those question marks and just say that I make a little but by a little trip, Florida to Anchorage, Alaska area is a long trip. If I fly up with a few buddies and just like, hey, tell us, like, get us going in the right direction. So some young
mm,
dads come to you. What are some of the top of mind? Like you're like, nope, what you want to for sure start with some of these anchoring, like do this as a young dad. What
mhm.
are some of the things you'd share?
Yeah, I love that. So, um, anytime that I work with dads or I work on my own kind of parenting, it's especially for the boys, it's a clear definition, translating and communicating and modeling a clear definition of what it means to be a man. So it has to do with like a clarity, and then it has to do with getting it in there. And I am just really passionate about this particular program that I've involved in. It's called the Alaska Nights because it creates a context to teach dads about what the Bible says about authentic biblical manhood, and it gives them a context to press that in a way that's truly unforgettable because of where we do it and kind of how we do it.
And so this is what I'm so curious about is the culture, a community of like you've got a huge leadership team that's for years, 25 plus years has said we're going to prioritize this, creating this framework, bringing dads and mentor type dads and these boys to experience what they're not going to drift towards. It's
Mm.
been crafted to help them grow. Share a little more about what the experience is.
Yeah. So we believe that middle school is a strategic time, and a strategic time to start calling boys up and out of the home, up and away from a video game console, up and away from anything that kind of has their hearts and their minds, and up into some learning. And we believe that learning is led by dad. And so this program, the Alaska Nights, is designed to equip dads with a language and opportunities to kind of call up and to invite their boys into the community of men. And this experience, this backcountry discipleship school that I'm going to be sharing about a little bit here, is where that happens. And there are some formal markers, some kind of why in the road moments, so that in the future, when that boy thinks, if anybody ever asks that young man, when did you become a man?
Mm,
They have an answer to
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Now, culture has set up a lot of, pseudo moments or milestones.
Mhm.
Is it when you beat this game? Is it when you go on your first date? Is it when you engage with a woman in a certain way? Like, there's all kinds of things the culture can offer up that a young man may grab to. It's like, well, I think it was when this happened, or I think it was when this happened. We as men of God, we want to intercept all of that,
Yes.
and we want to say, no, 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 this is what it means, and this is when it happens, and this is a vision not only for you as a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old or an 18-year-old, but this is a vision that you can apply from now on, whatever context you're in.
Is,
So,
is it a series? They're actually going to come multiple times, a series of trips then to this
yeah,
backcountry discipleship school.
yeah. So we start out by inviting the boys to join us for this weekend experience, and we keep it a secret.
Okay.
Now, anytime you say, "Oh, it's a secret," and the secret is wrapped around a religious thing, it's like, no, no, we're not talking about like a fraternity or a secret society or anything goofy like that. But we really want this to be a surprise because we really want those young men to count the cost and to think, I'm at this Y in the road,
Mhm.
and for it to kind of have the most magnitude, the most amplitude, the most impact. And so we try to keep it quiet and discreet. But there's a moment when these young boys, they wake up in the morning, they have a letter or a video from their father that says, "Hey, I'm calling you up and out. You have a choice. You can go back to bed. You can, mommy can make you breakfast, and you could spend the day at home doing what you usually do, or you can come and follow me into manhood."
Wow.
And so, I mean, most of the boys that have ever had that challenge have said, "Yeah, I'm going." And then they have a series of moments to kind of confirm and affirm that that's what they want to do over the rest of the morning.
Mm.
And so they're kind of called up and called out. They're given a point of decision. And then for these young men, we spend the next couple of days really rolling out a vision for manhood. Like, what does the Bible say about what is a man? And we contrast Adam 1 and Adam 2. Adam 1 being Adam in the Garden of Eden, who, when we define biblical manhood, he failed.
Yes.
And we need to learn from his failure. But in the New Testament, in the Gospels, we have this Adam 2, which is
Yeah.
Jesus,
Mm.
who did it perfectly. So, in the contrast, let's have a discussion about what this means. So, important at this point, this is not something we made up. This has all been adopted from a book that was written by a guy named Robert Lewis. Robert Lewis is from Fellowship Bible Church in Little Rock, Arkansas. He wrote a book called Raising a Modern Day Knight. And his idea was that dads need to be involved, boys need a masculine vision.
Yes.
If you do it around an intentional language, and if you do it around ceremony, these things are sticky. So he's the one that kind of set up the kind of the big idea that, like, hey, here's a language that we can transfer. Here's the biblical study. What we've done in Alaska is we've brought all of the learning, all the content, all the ideas, we brought it into the back country
Yes.
of Alaska, where I think everything is just amplified. So
Yes.
anyway,
Well, we
yeah.
had Robert Lewis on 3 years ago, and so
Ha.
grateful for that resource. We've continued to recommend Raising a Modern Day Knight. But the what's uncommon is taking some learnings, some principles that are straight from the Bible, like you're talking about Adam 1, Adam 2, but actually like activating. Let's create something for dads and for sons. That's what's uncommon. I've spent 2.5 years in an RV traveling the country looking for pockets and moments and bright spots of intentional fatherhood work. And I'm not finding those kind of examples often. So that's why I celebrate. One, I celebrate, but two, like you felt like I want to not only be a part as a young dad. I mean, your son was young when you started this. I think he was like 3 years old. I think he told me. You said, I
Mm-hmm.
want to help others. I want to help this vision go and help others a decade before you needed it, as far as your son. Why do you think that's uncommon? Why are these places, these retreats, these moments, these challenges, invitations for dads? Why are they not found more often?
I'm not sure, but here's what I do know. The things that are out there that seem to be effective or can be effective vehicles to translate some of these things, they're just kind of going away, or they're changing or something. And so, um, you know, the principles are what matters. It's dads catching a vision for
Yes.
translating man, like whether or not it's this backcountry discipleship school or whether it's any other program. But I feel like some of the formal programs where you could actually do these kinds of things inside of, they just, at least in Alaska, a lot of them seem to be going away. And so what I feel like is this is kind of like a holdout, at least for now, where We're like, no, 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 we are going to fight for this. And I think the longevity that we've enjoyed has been tied to the fact that that it's really transforming men's hearts and their families. And the definition of manhood and the context that we teach where that definition plays out are really transferable in every season. So men are catching the vision, and then they want to come back and serve, and they're telling their friends, and people are still coming. So, but I just don't think there are a lot of I don't think there are a lot of programs like this out there, and so I feel like we've kind of like it's almost like we've stumbled onto something, and recognizing the value of what we're doing, and so everybody's kind of like protecting it, investing in it, and like pouring into it. So
And you're investing in, you're discipling the dads or the mentors,
yeah,
and then they in turn their sons, but alongside of other men. So there's this. I feel like there's this wraparound where it's not a program for one dad to go do on his own. Is that am I correct on
yeah.
that?
Well, I think what you're talking about is important. This is a ministry to dads. Now, people see a backcountry camp out in Alaska, or oh man, that sounds great. The boys are going to love that. The boys are going to make a lot of memories. That's true. But the ministry is to the dads. If they can get their heads and their heart around this vision for manhood, they can apply it to their own lives and live it out. Well, then they have something to share with their sons. And if the weekend, this special weekend, lasts 2 days, 3 days, well, that's going to end,
Yeah.
and they're going to go home. And so if there's been a transference of a language that they can speak and principles that are timeless, no matter what happens, there's an incident at school, if there's trouble in a relationship, if there's trouble in the home, there's already in place a language to speak to bring some challenge to that. And so again, a ministry to the dads and kind of a legacy ministry in that I just can't see a context over the entire life span of a man where this definition of manhood and the context where it plays out are not relevant.
Yes.
And I've tried.
Yeah. Right.
I've tried to find like, does this time out, or will this ever become culturally insignificant? And I don't think so. So yeah.
So needed, so needed. Now we've talked a little bit around the idea of a clear definition of biblical manhood, and I believe that like there's a equipping fathers. This is just what I read from our dialogue ahead of time. Like the goal is to equip fathers and mentors to communicate and transfer a clear vision of biblical manhood. And then there's a this is how we do it. It comes next, but
Mhm.
the so Robert Lewis gives like four kind of key pillars or principles. Like this is what a man is, a biblical man. Which I actually don't know them off the top of my head. I've read it a couple times. Do you know
Uh,
the four keys?
I do, and here's what's cool. If you were to walk downstairs on a Sunday and pull a man from our men's ministry aside and be like, "Can you define biblical manhood?" He would be like, "Yes, a real man, REAL, R rejects passivity. A man rejects passivity. E expects God's greater reward.
Yeah.
A accepts responsibility, and L leads courageously." So rejects passivity, expects God's greater reward, uh, accepts responsibility, leads courageously.
Mm,
Now, those kind of roll off the tongue, but expect God's greater reward. What is that? Well, that means delayed gratification.
yes.
And that is a principle that every man needs to
Yes.
entertain
Yes, we do.
and think about like, I'm going to make sacrifice now, but I know what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And, I've got energy, I've got time, I have my purity, I have these things that are God given that once I spend them, I don't get them back.
Yeah.
And so anyway, those are the main principles, this REAL. And then what's important to mention is that we call them the four W's.
Okay.
So the four W's are the contexts where you can directly apply the REAL, right? So the four W's are: a man has a work to do,
Mm,
a will to obey, a woman to love, and a world to serve. And so, if you think of like a 12-year-old boy who's joining up with us, and he's thinking, a woman to love. He's like, well, I don't really like girls. It's like, well, yeah, but you have mom at home and grandma down the street and your cousin who's a girl comes over all the time and these young ladies in your class. And that's where those are the women to love right now. And then when you become an older teenager, that context changes. And even when you get married, right? I have a woman to love, it's my wife, but there are also women around me all the time in my workplace, in my community, other moms and women that are tied to and there is like a code of conduct, this REA. What is it? What does REAL look like in how I cherish my
Yes.
wife and also in how I engage with these other women? So just making a case for this clear definition is gold. The contexts are gold, and you get a 13-year-old, 12-year-old, and somebody in their 60s, 70s, 80s. It always applies.
Does.
So,
It does. What are some examples of between the backcountry moments with other dads and their boys for your three sons? Some examples of what it looks like kind of in the between the out in the backcountry. What are some either rhythms or moments or kind of key elements to the experience that kind of span in between the gaps?
do you mean like how does it play out? Like
Yeah,
what does it
yeah, on
look
the home
like?
front.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
so I was thinking of this morning because I was thinking, it's one thing to have these definitions, it's one thing to have a great weekend, but like what's the long-term fruit? What does it look like? We have an 18-year-old son who is a servant in our family. And I feel like we really saw this definition activated in him when he got keys to a car. Because when you, I'll cry thinking about this. Because when you get keys to a car, you've got like this level up in terms of access and the ability to just kind of go. And he has been a servant to our family in terms of like the um, the shuttling of the
Sure.
younger kids around the town for sports and activities and to school and from school. And he has just stepped up. And we have been so grateful for his help and his willingness to wait and to be patient and to do pickups and to run around the school building looking for his brothers and sisters to make sure that they're covered for a ride home. I mean, just that's like that's a he is exercising. He's rejecting passivity, R, and it's a world to serve. He's serving, and it sounds really simple and practical, but it's not. The other place I've seen it with my 18-year-old is he has had some dating relationships where he's just had to put it to work, and he's put together some communications with some of the dads of the gals that he's been with, and just in kind of how he sets himself up inside of a dating relationship, that it wasn't pressure from us. It was more like we checked in with him and we're like, hey, how are you applying what you know to be true? And he's like, let me show you. And
Wow.
so it's like not waiting for us to initiate. It's looked a little bit different from my second son. It's looked different from my second son because he's different,
Sure.
right? And I think one of the things that he has wrestled with over time is just trying new things. And I feel like we've been able to appeal to this, like, hey, less of a boy, more of a man, REAL, four contexts with the W's. And I think that the result for him has been that he has tried new things and has been very courageous in stepping into social situations, activities he's never tried before, and just kind of walking in with his shoulders kind of pushed back a little
Mm.
bit
Yeah.
and giving it a go. And I think he's been surprised because out of those activities, he's found skills that he's never thought he's had and friends that he wouldn't have had unless he stepped in.